going on, motorsports fans? This is Jared here, back season. What are we on, bro? We on season 6, episode 1.
I guess, man. Let's go with it.
We're trying to come back again. Man, this podcast has had its ups and downs. It has been dead. We have revived it more times than we can freaking care to remember. But we're gonna do it again. And what revived it this time was my brother and I, all thanks to Eddie Mitchell and Tarin, his friend Tarin, we were able to go to the Daytona 24-hour this year. This was our first Daytona, our first 24-hour. Been to Sebring a few times myself. I've brought my brother a few times to Sebring. But this is the first time we were able to go to Daytona 24. First time we were able to experience that just thrill of the IMSA season starting, kicking off racing worldwide, and just seeing some of the most amazing racing. And we couldn't have asked for a better race, a better environment, a better experience. The amount of laughs that we had, it was an absolutely amazing experience, and we're going to share it with you right during this show. And this is going to kick off pretty much a few talking topics, and hopefully we'll be able to run this throughout the year. Maybe make it a new Monday night kind of thing, and if we get enough views, maybe we'll do a live stream. You never know. Hopefully we'll find a guest or two to jump on and run it with us. But let's get this going. So what happened was we had no intention of going to the Daytona 24. We always watched it on TV, never missed that event. But a friend of ours hit us up and said, "Hey, I know you like racing. I know you like the Daytona 24. I'm going to send you." And we were able to go. Made it happen. And we got up there. We actually had to triangulate our events. We had to get up there. Brett was already in Tampa for a business meeting. I was down in South Florida and had to drive up, and we kind of triangulated coordinates, met up there, got in. What was really crazy was after parking and taking the tram inside, everybody was really nice. It was really easy to find your way. I think you had probably the same experience, right? It was pretty easy to get in and find your way to where you were going. What I did realize was the absolute chaos and the herd of people, and the track I guess has been there so long, and the event has been going on for so long that they know where they want you to go, and they essentially funnel you where they need you to go. And because it was so close to race time, they open the track for the track walk, and they line up all the cars on pit road, and they allow you to kind of mingle with the crews, the pit crews. The drivers will stand out there. They're definitely overwatching the car, making sure nobody does anything crazy, and we will get into some of that craziness that occurred. But overall, just it's a really amazing event. They parade the GTPs down the strip, and they do a driver introduction, and it's an experience to be able to get to meet up with the teams. And this is where Brett and I were able to link up, was right on the track walk. I was able to meet up with Rasmus Lind, who raced for the 22 United Autosport this year in the LMP2 with Paul DeResta and a few of his buddies. They ended up finishing P2 in class, had a definite shot at P1. We're definitely fast enough with P1, and probably should have walked away with that Rolex. I'm still a little hurt by it, but was able to meet up with Rasmus and talk to him before the race, which is another cool thing about IMSA racing and about endurance racing, is you would never be able to do that in some of the other racing atmospheres. You know what I'm saying? We were able to, we were able to take a picture with Rasmus. We were able to talk to him about the race and see what he was excited about, and see the drivers and their families together. What did you think about being able to get on the track for the track walk and experiencing that?
Yeah, it was definitely a unique experience, and what it brought me back to was when we were little and we used to go to Riverhead Raceway, and being able to go down into the pits after all the racing was done And I mean, I remember I have countless pictures of sitting in the cars, and I don't know if you remember, but like my headboard growing up was all the poster of all the local drivers. But I mean, that's on the local level. You don't expect that at such a high level of motorsport, and that's exactly what we got. I mean, the the level of trust. You say that there were people watching those cars during the walkthrough. I say that if they were there, they were pretty spaced out, because if you, I mean, I don't know who would want to do something you know scandalous, but there was opportunity. A little touch here, a little touch there. I don't know. I didn't, but it was great getting that close, seeing the drivers. I mean, standing behind Ben Keating out of nowhere, seeing him, meeting up with your friend. It was an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah, Ben's a tiny little guy, isn't he?
Well, I mean, compared to you, most people are tiny, but I'm average, and yeah, he's tiny.
Yeah.
I'm average and he's tiny.
What's really weird is you'll either see like a driver who's like 5'7", 5'8", and like just pushing 100 pounds, or you're seeing a driver who's like 6'1" and like 160 pounds. It's really crazy the dynamic that you see with some of these drivers, and the size differences and the comparison that you can make, and how you can get somebody like a Felix Rosenquist pair up with somebody who's, looks like he's twice as tall as him, and they'll still be able to fit in the car and not have to make those crazy adjustments before the car leaves pit road. But we'll get into some of the craziness that we did. So we did the pit walk. We were able to meet up with some of the teams, the drivers, like we said, look at the cars really close. And then the race started, so they started kind of shoving everybody either into the grandstands or back into the pits. And we were able to see the race from just after turn one, in between turn one and turn three, which would be the first horseshoe. And it was amazing, man. Watching those cars blast by you for the first time. Everybody is really friendly. The fans, really not many. The only time I ever had an issue with unfriendly fans was during the track walk. People would walk into you and then act like you were the rude one, but you could kind of tell like those people, the people that were
Are
doing
those
that,
the real fans
right?
though? Are those the real fans?
That's what I'm saying. Like the people, that's what I noticed is the people that were doing it seemed like, kind of like there for the clout kind of thing, or
Right.
they didn't really seem like they were really true fans. All the true fans, the people who were really there for the racing, were really nice. But yeah, we were able to watch the race start out, watch them take the first horseshoe. Amazing to see them come through with cold tires and still be able to have the speed and the grip that they had. But they did really well. And I mean, I don't even know where to go to here. We kind of walked around the pits a lot. I feel like we tried to look at the banking. We tried to look at the kink. We went around to a few different areas. My brother uses a little motorized scooter to get around, so definitely looked at some of the ADA stuff. And they do a pretty good job for wheelchairs, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's such a busy event. I had to wait. Most people could just jump on a tram, and I had to wait for an ADA van, but they were running so many. I think we spoke to one guy where they said they have one of the ADA vans, but when there's an event like this, they lease like six more. So you got
Right.
like seven vans running around. I mean, it's big area, but they really do a great job. Listen, I love Sebring, but it's not like Sebring. Getting around in mobility scooter is difficult at Sebring. They also have a tram that makes it easier to get around, but there's so many areas that are not accessible. Whereas, at Daytona, I pretty much was able to go everywhere.
Right.
And we definitely took advantage of that.
I think the craziest thing was my realization at the stark contrast between a racetrack like Sebring and then one like Daytona. Whereas I know Daytona is a stadium, and I know it's built for the original, the NASCAR, and they use the infield as a track. But Sebring is so big, and the track is so intricate. Whereas Daytona has been running that layout for as long as I can remember. And it's a simple layout and it works. It makes for great racing. It makes for great overtakes. It makes for mistakes. It's like it's I just find it crazy. Like we're coming up with these Tilka tracks and all these other crazy Formula One tracks and why these things don't work. And you put a track like Daytona together for IMSA racing, it looks like the most simple track on the calendar. Whereas if you actually drive it, it's not. But it just works, man. It's an amazing track. It's an amazing event. The people who put it on in Daytona and France and all them, it was great. So we traveled around, we explored a little bit, and then we realized that for Brett's mobility scooter, he had lost or misplaced or what have you the charger that he needs to charge it. So eventually it gets to a point where we gotta plug that bad boy in and get it charging, or else he can't really move around much anywhere. So we realized we were missing that. We had to go back to the car to
Talk
get
about
it.
limiting mobility.
Yeah. He limited his own mobility. So we went back to the car to go get that. And while we were at the car, we were like, you know what? Let's just go to the hotel and check in. Originally, we were not going to go to a hotel. We were not going to get a hotel. We were going to stay on premise. And honestly, I will tell anybody if I ever do the race again, I will not get a hotel. I will bring a sleeping bag and I will sleep at the stadium because there is real no reason to get a hotel if you can kind of hack it. But we decided to go back to the hotel, check in, put our stuff down, and then we'll go back to the track. Well, Brett is the worst travel agent that I've ever had in my entire life.
Not my fault. I was tricked. I was led astray. I was bamboozled. All
We
right.
uh we
There were so many reasons why this happened, and I'm going to say that not many of them were my actual fault.
it was the worst hotel that you could actually. It wasn't a hotel. I'm just gonna stop calling it a hotel. It was definitely a
Not
motel. It was one of those
barely
motels that barely a motel. It was one of those motels that you watch in the movies where everybody like they check in and like 20 minutes later they get murdered.
No, you know what it is? It's a, oh honey, we've been on the road for a long time. Let's just stop here. Oh, it'll be totally fine. And then starts the horror movie.
Yeah, it
Right? They
was it
get a
was terrible.
room. Yeah.
It was it's terrible. Down to the Harley Davidson curtains with holes in them. The beds were like rocks. Honestly, what happened? We didn't take our shoes off. We didn't get
We didn't take
undressed at
anything
all.
off, bro.
I
We
put
put
my
on
hood up,
more clothes on
put
before
my
laying down.
put our hoods up, and laid down on the bed on our back. And for about 30 minutes, closed our eyes to try to get a little nap. We looked at each other like, "Listen, we're gonna stay here for about an hour, and then we're gonna leave." We made it 30 minutes and checked out. Paid the money for the hotel. Hopefully, Brett calls hotels.com and has a word with them because
Yeah.
their 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 promotion of this hotel was embarrassing. But yeah, checked out immediately, got the hell out of there, went back to the stadium, and kind of made it a point that we were going to go ahead and stay at the stadium no matter what. We'll just stay there as much as we can. If we have to, we'll sleep in the car and we'll figure it out. Push comes to
To our
shove.
chagrin, I mean, it was one of the coldest 24s in a long time, I think.
Did you
It
look it
it was
up?
cold.
I'm curious to know. Look that up real quick. See what the temperature was because we have been living. Listen, we're originally from New York, but we've been living in South Florida for years now. Blood is thinned out, and it was cold. We knew it was going to be cold. We both had the same idea: layer up. We get back to the stadium, decide to go to the grandstands. Went up to the 400 section. I really enjoyed it. You could see we sat right where the turn one and turn six coming out of the infield onto the bank, and we sat right there. So we were able to see all the actions, the restarts, everybody coming through the infield, going through around, and it was a really good place to sit. But it was cold. At the time, we were wearing two pairs of socks. I was wearing a pair of sweatpants, a pair of jeans over that, a t-shirt, a hoodie, another hoodie, and then a winter jacket from the army and a beanie with both hoods up. And we froze our patooties off. Sat there. I don't know how long we stayed. I want to stay. I want to say we sat there till about 11:30, and then had the idea to try to go catch some Z's. And if you're at Daytona and you're in the 400 level, if you turn around and walk outside the seating area, they have this little AstroTurf place where you can kind of sit and watch the TVs on some lawn chairs. AstroTurf, if anybody needs to know, gets kind of warm, and when you lay on it. And we laid down on the ground and kind of went back to back, tried to get some sleep, and just it was so cold that we could not get any sleep. So jump
You know
back
what it
up,
was? Because I mean, my toe went numb in what you just described
just
there.
one toe.
Just one toe. It was real. I mean, they were all cold, but there was only one toe that was numb. I don't know why. Um,
One
so I just
toe.
looked it up if you want to know. So it's definitely we were not there during the coldest. It's definitely there. I think it's the wind. So first off, I mean like there's other ones on here where it was a high of 57, low of 41. We
It
got
was at a
a
felt. Wait, no. The difference was it only got down to like a 45, but it felt like 37.
right.
It
It
got to a
it
point where we had extra shirts over our legs. We had a rainproof jacket over our legs, which we were hoping would stop the wind, and it did for a bit. But we could not get warm. I think at
that
about
the wind was so brutal, dude. It
yeah,
didn't stop. It didn't slow down. It was brutal.
I think what at 12:30 we went back to the cars. I think it was like
Yeah,
12:31 a.m. I think at
right.
12:31 a.m. we went back to the cars, ran the cars with the heat on. Pretty much, he sat in his car, I sat in my car. Took off as much clothes as possible. By the way, if you're staying in your car, or you're coming out of the cold and you're trying to get a nap, don't stay in all those warm stuff. No matter how cold you are, you got to take those clothes off. So we took the clothes off, just in our first layer. Got some Z's. What do you say? We slept about 3 hours in the car, maybe.
Yeah, about that.
I think it was
Yep,
about three
3 hours.
hours.
Yep.
3 hours in the car. Jumped back up, brushed our teeth right there in the parking lot. Threw our layers back on. Went back in and muscled through the rest of the way until we ended up leaving. We were able to see amazing restarts. We were able to see the big crash. What else did we see, man? I mean,
We saw
24
so
hours of
much.
racing. It's just amazing how much happened. And it's funny, is like you would expect a lot of the craziness to happen at the end of the race, which it did. And we'll get all into some of that too. But I just find how amazing the racing was before that. Now, you do have to know a little bit about racing. You have to pay attention a little bit. Rasmus got in his night stint, and I remember watching him push cars, almost push cars, right? Not literally, but figuratively push cars around in the infield and get aggressive in his stint. I feel like he knew what he had to do. He knew what he had to get done. He went in there and he got it done. I remember at one point I was laughing because if you know who Lauren Heinrich is, Porsche factory back driver, drives the AO Rexy. Rasmus pretty much met him into turn one, pushed him through the infield, ducked underneath him at the horseshoe, and kind of pushed him out wide, really, to make his way, and got back on his horse. And Lauren Heinrich was flashing him all the way through the kink. And I just remember seeing that and laughing to myself, being like, I know what it's like to be a GT3 and play this on iRacing. And I know what it's like to be like these goddamn prototypes and be all mad at them. But then when you're watching Rasmus do it, you know why he's doing it. A lot of the times you don't get to see the big picture. You don't get to see where he is in his stint. He was out. He had just come out of the pits. He was on fresh tires, and he needs to make the most of those tires before they fall off, which they ended up falling off, and then he was ended up getting caught by the AO spike. So it's funny to watch that seeing the race from a different perspective and being able to see them why they're cutting through the field. Now, don't get me wrong, iRacing people are doing it just because they're iRacing people, but the professionals are doing it normally because there is usually an extra reason, right? Nobody's truly that highly aggressive in the middle of the stint, in the middle of the night, 12 hours into a 24-hour race, unless there's a reason for it. And I thought he was respectful. I thought he did a great job, and I want to say right when we got to the cars is when the 31 wrecked, right? I think we like just like laid down in the cars and we were listening to the race on IMSA radio and the 31 wrecked, right? Did they ever find out what that was? Was it a blown tire?
To be honest, and I've watched several highlights also. It's not on any of the and that's one thing I think you realize is there's so much action, and even I'm in the middle of watching the 1 hour IMSA highlights back, right? NBC's is only 30 minutes, but there so much happens
Right.
that they miss, big things. The 31 wrecking was a big deal, and NBC Motorsports highlight reel doesn't even have it in there.
No.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I have to look into. I'll try and find it right now why it wrecked, but that's exactly right. That's right when we got to the cars. Big deal because I think they have a unique philosophy in that team, taking those single seater stars, Jack Aiken and Drugovich, and putting them in there, and they were fast. They were really fast.
Explain to me why they can't finish a race, right? Pipo Durrani at Sebring last year, they have these really weird accidents that come out of nowhere. Is it a luck thing? Are they putting themselves in? Do you believe that the 31 Cadillac puts itself in situations to cause itself problems, or do you feel like they just have bad luck? Right in hockey, we call it puck luck. It's just the hockey gods sometimes look down on you and say, nah, fam. Do they have that in racing too? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible. I think it might come down a little bit to strategy and how these cars have to run to stay competitive, right? The Cadillac really needs to push, you know, where whether it's fast at night and needs to make up some ground, or a little slower during the day, it seems, and therefore it's pushing to stay right. So at night it's pushing to get as much advantage as possible, and then during the day it's pushing as much as possible so that it can you know try and stay competitive. Whereas, and why I think the Porsche now is so dominant in a way, wins all these big races, is it's solid around the clock, and therefore it doesn't always need to push. It can conserve what you know its bodywork, its engine, its all of its components, its tires to an extent, and therefore it can push when it needs to.
Hmm.
And I think that that's a big reason why the Porsche is so dominant, and why maybe the Cadillac struggle. It's something I think the Acura used to be, is what the Porsche is now. I think the Acuras used to be that in the DPI era.
Do we feel like let's stay on this topic? Okay, let's say this is the first year back with the Cadillac and Wayne Taylor Racing. Not the most impressive first showing. Still shaking down, still getting used to the car. I mean, obviously, it's got to be part of that. They don't have the data that they did. Do you think they made a phone call to Chip Ganassi and asked him for some data? What do you think?
Um, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I think it's probably just getting used to it and trying different things. I think I heard one of the drivers say when they get in, there's so many tools at the fingertips in these hybrid cars. And I heard one guy say where it was, you got to try the wrong things at certain times, just so that, when things get tough, you know what to do and what not to do. Later in the stint, they have to rely more on their tools, so that, as the tires go, as the brakes go. So I think, there's a lot to do with, learning, the drivers learning and the team learning how to handle these new hybrids. I think that's a
Okay,
big part of it.
I'll take that. I'll take that. I always felt like Chip Ganassi was always so close to making it work, but they always messed up the strategy call. And I do feel that Wayne Taylor Racing does strategy very well. I think when they do find out the fuel consumption of the Cadillac and the drive of the Cadillac, I think they're going to do well. So I don't really worry about them. Do we? I do worry about Lamborghini, right? I did hear that when after they retired, I talked to one of the guys in the pits, and I heard that their issue was some kind of an overheating thing, and it was kind of a precautionary retirement of the car. And I really hope they can get that squad together because we really didn't get to see the strongest of their drivers get on. And it was really disappointing not to be able to watch some of those, Grosjean and everybody get into the car and see what that car really could have done. What I was are we shocked at BMW, right? They finished last year strong with the double showing at the Indy, and I really was amazed that when they came out, they put it on pole. The car seemed strong all race. The 24 was there at the end, and I don't blame Lawrence Vanthor one bit for how bad that went. I really just believe that their race just kind of typical Daytona 500 at the end kind of fell apart. Daytona 500, Daytona 24 just kind of fell apart at the end there with the issues with the front nose and coming into traffic. And sometimes when you start pushing that hard at the end of the race, you either have that moment or you don't. And it just seemed that the Porsches didn't have to push as hard as the BMW had to push.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I
And
think
that
that's what set
again,
it
that
apart.
I think that seems to be reliability, um, a little Penske cheating, just joking, just joking. That seems to be their strength, that reliability. It's solid, regardless of the time of day, regardless of the weather, you
Right.
can rely on that Penske Porsche to be, competitive. And again, therefore, saving itself for when it needs to really push. I found that answer on, or somewhat of an answer, at least on the 31. So, 17 minutes of
Did
the
you hear what
hour
happened with the
gone.
captain? Did you hear what the captain said, Roger Penske?
What?
Well, they always on the broadcast when the Porsches were battling, they said that in IndyCar they usually don't let them they'll let them battle, but they tell them to be respectful.
Right.
And they stuck the microphone in Roger's face after the race, and he goes, "Well, we told them not to battle each other, but apparently they're race car drivers. They're gonna go at it."
Yeah,
So
that
the
makes sense.
directive was to not battle each other, and I think they let them go at it for a little bit. I think they really did, and then you could see clearly when the seven kind of backs off and doesn't continue to press the issue. But that being said, when the BMW came into play and the seven was battling the BMW, they did it respectfully. BMW's GT3 team, not so
Wait, hold
much.
on. Wait. Before we get there, let me tell you what happened in 31.
All right, well, don't read it to
Um,
me. Just tell me.
okay, so an apparent failure at the left rear sent it straight into the safer barrier
Oh, wow. Okay, so it was a tire
at
failure.
at NASCAR 4.
So it was a tire failure. At NASCAR 4, they're not up to 200 yet. They hit 200 at the start finish. He's probably doing 190 miles an hour.
Still, dude.
I know.
And it's
Testament to the
scary
safer
looking if you
barrier of
look
the
at
car.
it.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at it, it's scary.
It almost looks like a NASCAR car getting hooked into the wall.
Yeah, it reminded me of Earnhardt in a way.
Yeah. Credit to the cars, the safety of the cars, and the safer barriers that they've put in. Amazing. Can we get into
Okay,
BMW GT3?
let's talk
We
about the
gotta we
BMWs,
gotta
please.
talk about
Please.
Tommy Milner flipping that bird down the main straight. Listen, so if anybody doesn't know, I mean, if you're watching this, you probably watched the race. But for the people who didn't watch the race, the BMWs, two GT3 BMWs, battled and there were two Corvettes from Team Chevy, and they went at it. Or Team Corvette, I should say. And they went at it. And one of the BMWs, the 48, was blocking the number 4, which was driven by Tommy Milner, from trying to catch the number 1. And it got to a point where they penalized the number 48 for blocking, right? They actually issued a penalty to the number 48 BMW for doing what it was doing. not only did it continue to do what it was doing, it apparently, and this is what Tommy Milner said, actually performed a few pit stops to make sure it would come back out in front of the Corvette. And essentially, what hurt the Corvette the most was at the International Horseshoe, parks it on the apex, causes the Corvette to jug out, and incidentally run into the number one BMW, which is probably not ideal for the 48. But it ended up ripping the bumper off of the Corvette, causing the Corvette to have to come in, get taped up. That tape fell off. They had to come in and tape it up again. Thank God that tape actually stayed. But it pretty much ruined Tommy Milner's chance at a Rolex watch. I think the last time they said that Milner made it into victory lane was, did they say it was 15 years? I want to say they said it was some ridiculously ungodly long amount of time. But essentially ruined the race for them by ripping that bumper off. Milner made his thoughts known on the start finish straight when he was passing the 48 as the 48 was coming in to serve a penalty or a pit. He stuck his finger out the window. He stuck his whole arm out the window and flipped off the 48. And you want to talk impressive. That's some wind. I don't know if you've ever been driving on I-95. You stick your hand out the window and you catch that 80-mile-an-hour wind, and it starts to pull your hand back. And he's doing 170 miles an hour, 160, 170 miles an hour on the start finish straight there. Stuck his hand out the window like a champ, flipped him the bird. Formula One crying about dropping the F bomb. We're slowing it down in IMSA and giving you a replay of it. And it was fantastic. It shows the emotion, the raw energy, and really gives you an insight. And before I let Brett go, I want to tell you a little bit else. Milner gets out of the car. They have immediately, reporters stick a microphone in his face while he's still hyped up to probably 1,000. And he calls him out. He calls out, I think it was Farnbacher was driving the car. He calls him out. He calls out the BMW team. He calls out everybody. And rightfully so. He definitely had it well within his right to do it. He did it in a respectful way, but he called him out. He said it was dirty racing. It was poor on them. They stuck the microphone in the number one driver's face, who was an innocent party, which Milner said he didn't blame the number one team at all, actually, and asked him what they thought. And he gave the most political answer I think I've ever heard in my entire life, saying that, hey, it's a tough race. We're just going out there. We're going to do our thing. And I really hope everybody keeps four wheels on a car. Hilarious. Now, Milner on his Instagram at the end actually said he's got nothing against Farnbacher, and he's almost 99.9% sure that he was acting on team orders to do what he did. And that doesn't surprise me at all. That really doesn't surprise me at all because I've been watching Farnbacher race. I want to say it was Farnbacher, right? Is it Farnbacher? I don't want to keep using the wrong name if it's not, but I've been
Let me
watching.
check now.
I want to say it's him, but I've been watching that team race or that driver race for a long time. Never really had any issues with him. But Tommy Milner definitely made it known, and it was great to see that raw emotion, that passion, and them two teams go at it. And just like the announcer said, was it Hinchcliffe that said it? But just like the announcer said, he was like,
Yeah,
"There's no
Hinchcliffe
way."
was like, "There's no." Hinchcliffe said, he goes, listen, this isn't NASCAR, but if it was me, that
A
there's no way
BMW is
the
not winning.
BMW sees, the finish line. There's no way it wins. And somebody even calls him out. He goes, "That's not the Canadian way." He goes, "I'm a racer first."
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened because the number four later on in the race, they had the BMW pinched in between the three and the four, and the number four tapped them around in turn one and sent them going. So you kind of knew that was coming. That payback's got to come. You can't just go unanswered like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and what Tommy Milner was saying is this is not the IMSA way. This is not the sports car way. You
Right.
don't you don't regularly see
In the
this.
team aspect is what you're saying, right?
Right. And it seems that there definitely was a clear directive because again, it is clear that there was a strategy from the team to make sure that the Corvette was blocked to try and give an advantage to the number one. Um, it definitely looked um I would say there's little doubt that this was strategic. You know, it was Magnussen-esque from Formula One. The thing is I don't recall Magnussen getting a penalty and continuing to do it, right? A lap after being told that you have a penalty for blocking, you're still in front of the car. Yes, the Corvette team should have told Tommy Milner, hey, he has a penalty, back off a bit. But the problem is, if he backs off, he lets the number one go because all three cars were on top of each other. So if you try and back off just a little bit, the number one's getting around you.
I
So
don't
he was in a very, very difficult position. Um,
I don't
and
understand
I
the
don't
blocking though. There was like 2 hours and 45 minutes left. You're still talking about 2 or 3 pit stops. I don't understand why we're blocking with that much time.
it was excessive blocking. Like it's all for like several laps, all the announcers could talk about. Think about this. You have Um, what 61 cars started the race, so
Hmm.
let's be
Hmm.
conservative and say 55, 50 cars are left on track,
Right.
and it's all the announcers could talk about is this excessive blocking.
Right, and to try to get the announcers to stop talking about the GTP class is impressive. So unless you're AO Rexy, I'm just throwing it out there. Unless you're AO Rexy or you got a cool paint job, really nobody cares.
And
So
to piggyback off that, because I mean, this is probably the first time where I love watching the LMP2s, don't get me wrong, because the racing is always so tight, so competitive. But I haven't really had a dog in the fight until this
mm,
race, you know. Um, I really wanted to see the 22 do well. And so seeing how much was going on, the back and forth, think about it coming down the line, the last what um
that last yellow,
the
there was
last
4 cars on the lead lap.
the last 6 or 7 hours of LMP2, there was so much changing of, what three cars were out front, whether it
Sure.
was because of spins or cars breaking down
Hmm.
or excessive penalties. That LMP2 battle was crazy, and there's no way you could have predicted what was going to happen in the way that it did happen. And yet, there was no coverage of it. And again, even going back to the highlights, there's almost no highlights covering, how that battle came down at the end. Um, and it was really fun to
It's
watch.
unfortunate because I remember being on Discord and I remember kind of relaying what was going on with Rasmus and the 22 and the LMP2 battle, and them telling me like, "Yo, they're not covering it at all on
I know.
television, and it's impossible to keep up with it." And I really feel like I get the GT3s have the manufacturers, right, and they have this obligatory thing to where they have to cover the manufacturers because they boast all these manufacturers. I understand where the money is. I understand the GTP class being the big new thing. I get it. I really do. And I understand that the LMP2s are a spec class and everybody's driving the same frame. But you know what? There's cars in that class. There's racers in that class. There's teams in that class that deserve to be talked about. And the racing was phenomenal. You could not tell me at any point if the 22, the 99, the 8, or the 88 were going to win that race. The 74 Riley team was in it from time to time. It was fantastic. And at the end, it almost looked like a team who wasn't leading the entire thing was going to win it, and he spun himself out. I did not think, don't get me wrong, the Tower Motorsports, they did phenomenal all race. They were out front for a good amount of the race. Their strategy was great. But the 18 came out of nowhere and almost won the damn thing. The 22, if they hadn't gotten their penalties, which I don't even know what the second penalty was for with Paul DeResta, I still don't know. But if they hadn't got that penalty, I think the 22 gets a really good chance at winning this race. And that was not the first penalty they had. They had a second drive through penalty, which was incidentally the first, in the middle of the night. So it's just watching that LMP2 battle was phenomenal. And they covered it not at all. I just don't understand it. I get where the money is, and I understand all that, but you're one of the most exciting types of cars, classes of cars in your series does not get enough coverage. It just doesn't. We almost forgot to talk about the Ferris wheel.
Yeah, let's finish on the Ferris wheel.
I don't. We're not gonna finish. We got a little bit more to go, right? But we almost forgot to talk about the Ferris wheel. For those of you who don't know, there's a Ferris wheel at Daytona for the 24-hour. It is taller than you think it is, and I don't really. I never liked heights, and I didn't have a problem at the
Let's
top.
start with I don't know if any of you know my brother is, I'm average height. My brother's not, he's 6 foot. He is a strong dude. He's a veteran. He's a tough guy. You know what I mean? If I got to pick people to be in a fight with me, my brother, and not just because he's my brother, my brother's there, okay? And there's something about Ferris wheels and many other things that, that strength sometimes wavers.
All right, all
You know,
right, all right. On the listen, the thing went around 4 times. Fuck off. The thing went around
he's got a
four
little
times.
issue with heights.
The thing
Little issue with heights.
Relax. It went around 4 times. The first 3 times, I had to slide off the seat and get onto the ground. And I'll admit it, I was terrified. And I was only scared going up. Once it got to the top and it started coming back down, I was able to sit on the seat. But the going up thing and watching the ground get farther and farther away from you
I
just
don't like
freaked
it.
me out. I don't like
I
it.
don't like it.
I don't
I
like
don't
it.
like it.
The fourth time, though, I conquered my fear and I didn't move my
Yeah.
cheeks off that seat. But
No, we applaud. I applauded when we got to the top. He made it. He
It,
made it.
it was terrifying. It's taller than you think it is, man, and it's only on the
It
way
was
up. You would
great.
think it's at the top that you would have the biggest issue, and it really wasn't for me. Once I was up there, I was good. It's the getting up there that freaked me out. But I conquered my fear. I did the Ferris wheel at Daytona. If you get the chance, definitely give it a shot. If you're scared of heights, sit on the floor. It definitely helps. Just slide down, sit on the floor, wrap your arms around that pole in the middle, and just hold on tight.
He's hugging it. He's hugging the pole. You know what I just realized is I laughed so hard between that incident and the sketchy motel. I just laugh now and my cheeks are sore.
My
That's
cheeks
how
do
much
hurt.
laughing.
Yeah, they
That's how
do
much
hurt.
laughing we did.
I'm
Yeah.
proud of you. I'm proud of you because I knew in the cold I knew I was going to be all right. The army kind of prepared me for that. Almost got frostbite in FTX 5 when I was in basic training on my toes. So I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. But I'm proud of you. You were able to stick it out and bundle up with me and hang out for that race.
It definitely helped that those seats in the grandstands were pretty close to each other, and that body heat helped. But no,
Yeah,
no, no, I was sticking through. I love me some racing, and I'm from New York too, and definitely have had some cold digits in the past, so it's a feeling I'm used to. But
I'm going
I
back.
love
If
me some racing. Oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm going
oh yeah,
back next year, I think that and Sebring are becoming a thing. I think now that I know what I know, I'm a little bit more prepared to bring like a
yeah.
sleeping bag and
Gloves,
some,
blanket.
gloves, blanket. Yeah,
Yeah,
bless that guy
yeah,
who gave us the hand warmer packets.
yeah,
Yo,
man.
God bless that dude.
That was
Um,
surprising. Just out of nowhere, we turn around, this guy's handing us some,
yeah,
hand warmers. That was really good.
that was good. I mean, listen, the whole show, the fireworks display was fantastic. The coverage was good. You're able to hear most of the race. The sound of the cars. I remember my ears hurting. It was just deafening, but it was so great. Listening to that throaty V8 of the Cadillac, the flat six of the Porsche coming around. Just amazing. The downshifting of the LMP2s coming into turn one, watching it spit the flames out the side of the car and hearing the crackle. It's an experience that you have to do. And if you've never been to the Daytona 24, you never seen a live IMSA race, you owe it to yourself. I remember reading online some of like the like poor reviews of like, oh, we finally get to see this and blah blah. Listen, you don't like it, go to the race live. Go see it for yourself. It's a fantastic event. It's inexpensive. I mean, it's expensive because it's Daytona, but it's inexpensive for the tickets. You can get in there and have a great time. You could bring pretty much whatever you want. The fans are amazing, and it's a family atmosphere. Kids were everywhere, uh, even in the cold. I'm really surprised at how many people were in the grandstands with us at 4, 5, 6 in the morning, watching the sun come up while the cars are going around the track. It's something that you need to do. I think truly the last thing that we really need to cover, and I hope this is still recording because the timer kind of stopped, but YOLO, um, is AO Rexy losing broken parts. And there's some things that you can do. Listen, you have full access. There's a lot of access that you have when you are at an IMSA event, at an endurance racing event. And I know my brother and I are two peon podcasters that just do this for the hell of it and love to have some fun on the microphone. But please do not ruin this sport for us. All right. If you're going in there to steal parts, whether they're broken, not broken, I don't care. If it's not yours, don't touch it. All right. This is not something that you can go in there and just grab stuff and run out because you think it's cool to hang a piece of carbon fiber on your wall. Listen, do not ruin the sport for me. I enjoy this sport. IMSA and IndyCar are two of my favorite types of racing in the world. The unlimited access that you get, the ability to stand this close to the car by doing dumb shit like that, all you're doing is preventing the access in the future. Eventually, you do this enough times, they take away that privilege. Do not take away that privilege for everybody else because you are selfish. I'm begging you. I don't know if Brett has anything to say on the matter, but that's truly what I have to say on it. Please don't ruin this for me, bro.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it spot on. It's sad to see, especially it being, a private team. It's not one of those manufacturer-backed teams. Um, and every penny, you know, is important to those small teams. So luckily, they probably if it was a team, and it's probably why it happened, but their merchandise stand sold out, and then they got a new shipment in and it sold out again from what I hear. So that team's popularity. So at least we know where all the merchandise money's going, right?
Oh yeah.
Sad to
Listen,
say.
I know the Corvette, that ridiculous black and like yellow striped one won GTD. I know Tower won LMP2, and our boy Rasmus in the 22 came in second. I know, and hats off to Spike, man. That team ran a hell of a race, and
Yeah.
kind of upset that they had the ending that they had with the issue they had. Congrats off to the Porsches. Really, the 60 Meyer Shank out of nowhere. Phenomenal race for them. Heart wrenching for the BMW 24 team to not be able to come out, bring the podium home with the front end damage that they had. Who won GTD
That
Pro?
that that body shaking around
Was wild.
was wild.
I'm really still shocked
So,
that they didn't address that in the pit stop. I really am. I just don't think that they realized how bad it was. Who won GTD Pro?
yep, that would be the number 65 Ford Mustang.
Right, right, right. That's it. The Multimatic. Hell of a
Yep.
race for them. What's funny is they got pooped on, even though they pulled it right 1-2 on the pole. Their race was not that good. They just didn't. It didn't seem like they had the speed on the straights. It looked like the BMW was pulling on them. It didn't seem like they were really truly strong in the infield. What they did was they took all their data from last year and all the races that they ran. They put that together. They rebuilt the team this year, and they came out and slapped that sucker on the on the top spot for the first race of the season in one of the most difficult races of the year.
Yeah,
Hats off to
and
that
and
Multimatic team.
they come home first and third, okay? And yes, a lot of it's because of the BMW and Corvette shenanigans, but they finished first and third. And what you'll see is the Ford Mustang team really benefited by the Audi leaving, is from what I hear. Is now they could have gone to different drivers from their, you know,
Right.
from the
They
Ford GT that was running previously. because they definitely wanted to change up. And not that it was the driver's fault last year, but
No
sometimes you
way.
want, a
Yeah.
fresh start. No, 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 I know. But the pool of drivers that were open to them because Audi, stepped back, really, I think, helped them. That experience. So finishing first and third, who cares, man? Who cares who and why? The end of the race is,
Yeah.
two Mustangs on the podium.
You make a really interesting point, and I never really thought about like you ever just like a team can be like kind of middle of the road, and it happens in football, it happens in hockey. They change these one or two pieces, and they don't even have to be superstars. They could just change one or two pieces, and immediately makes them a title contender. And I feel like that's the kind of
Yeah.
thing with changing drivers for Multimatic, right? They the drivers weren't the end all be all reason why their season went the way it did last year. Brand new car, shaking it down, figuring things out. I remember at the beginning of the year last year, they have the trunk problem where like the rear end of the car popped off at Daytona.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
like things like that are not a driver's fault. But I found it interesting that just a small change like that can really make a huge difference in the performance of the team. So hats off to their team. They did fantastic. Hats off to everybody. I mean, the event was great. You owe it to yourself to get to a Daytona 24. Thank you again to Eddie. Thank you again to Tarin for hooking us up and getting us out there and allowing us to be a part of your deal. Brett, do you have anything else to say?
Only scrolling through, something that surprised me is where were all the Ferraris? I mean, we were walking through the pits and we're like, man, there's
Yo.
Ferraris everywhere. They did not perform too well.
No, I do
They did
remember
not
I do
perform
remember
too well.
walking through the pits and thinking to myself, there's a lot of Corvettes and there's a lot of Ferraris. I remember that. Yeah, the Ferraris didn't really finish too well. Right? I
Yeah.
heard a Leclerc was there in one of the Ferraris. Who else was driving a Ferrari? I don't even remember now.
Albert Costa was with Dragon Speed.
Right, Dragon Speed jumped to the Ferrari.
They they were the top Ferrari and they finished sixth in class,
All right, so
22nd
not
overall.
horrible. Not horrible. I mean, there's a lot of GT cars out there.
And
61 car
then
field, man. 61. Watching those guys, listen, you don't understand watching those cars.
so Arthur Leclerc was with AF Corsa, finished
Right.
seventh in class, 33rd overall.
Watching those cars come into turn one, on coming out of turn four on the banking, the pit car, the pace car peels off, and watching those cars get up to speed and hearing that roar, and the cars just flying at you, and all of a sudden just peeling off down into the infield. If you have not seen it live, you owe it to yourself. We're gonna get out of here. First episode back, season 6. Hopefully, you'll see a lot more of us. Some IMSA, some IndyCar, Formula One's coming back. We're gonna get back into it, but we'll see you guys later. Peace.
Peace.